This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody, and a beautiful but very chilly welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve this morning, where we've come up to one of the scenic vistas looking to the east in anticipation for the sunrise. And you can see quite a lot of haze. But much like yesterday afternoon, we finished with a beautiful sunset after the sun had set, so we're here before the sun rises this morning, just listening to all the beautiful sounds. And so welcome. Thank you for joining us on your live safari. So this morning there is quite a chill in the air. It almost feels as if it might have rained last night, but I think it was just a heavy cloud, blanket of dew that's fallen, because all the roads are covered in, it looks wet, as if it did rain last night. So I think there was quite a bit of dew that fell. It was really quite chilly last night, and there wasn't any cloud cover. And as we can see this morning, there's just a thin layer of mist above the ground, and just a few scattered clouds. It's a beautiful, beautiful day, and it's very sunny and warm. My name is Grant, and behind the camera we have Owen. And this morning we are quite excited because it's quite nice and cool this morning, but it's beautifully clear, so I'm sure later on today it's going to get very, very, very hot. So at the moment, the weather for today here on Phinda is going to reach around about 20 degrees. At the moment down around 12, 13 degrees. So it's quite chilly. We need that sun to rise and start to warm things up a little bit more. And as usual, we do rely on all of you to interact with us. So especially the kids under the age of 18, send your questions in to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. And for the rest of you, register on the WildEarth website. Head over to the Live Safari page and submit your questions there. Otherwise, you can use FC on Facebook. And just listening to all the sounds, we're quite keen to try and look for leopard this morning. So switching off like this and just taking in the sounds, trying to choose which direction to go in. Maybe listening for the vocalization, the rasping sound of a leopard, or maybe some impala or Ngala alarm calls, even bird alarm calls. That can give us a clue. But for now, it seems a little bit quiet. There were some zebras giving their alarm or slight distress call in the opposite direction, so behind us. But they only did it once, so I think it might have just been a stallion announcing himself to others. Thank you, Anna-Marie. Yeah, it's quite unusual to to have this mist quite high like this. Often in wintertime here on Phinda with the winter mornings we have this mist, but it sits down very low in the valleys only. But we've had some strange weather the last week or so, and so anything can happen. But yeah, it is quite stunning. Amazing to see those layers like that Odie is showing you. The little valleys and hills in between them. And then that is Lake St. Lucia. That's right in the middle of your screen at the moment. It is a little bit covered by that mist. But that is Lake St. Lucia, part of the Isimangaliso Wetland Park. And that does flow into the Indian Ocean. So from here in a straight line, we're about 20 kilometers away from the sea. There's still mostly just birds this morning. I haven't heard any alarm calls or any vocalizing. So what we're going to do is carry on our journey. We're going to head into an area where a female leopard was seen last night. And she was with an older cub. He's past a year old now, so he's actually already bigger than her. But she was leading him down a pretty prominent or pretty main road. So we'll go and look for tracks. If we don't find the leopards, we'll check in the area around there, look for any tracks or signs of them. But whilst we get into that area, I'm going to send you across to JP, who wants to say hello.
Good morning and welcome to WildEarth. We're live on Bushwalk at Eco Training Pridelands. We decided to start our walk from Leopard Koppie this morning, but before we head off, we're just going to enjoy that beautiful sunrise. So my name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got Gerrit. So our plan for this morning is to stick to the ridges, but first enjoy our sunrise, sit, listen, and hear what is going on in our environment. And based on that, we'll make a plan on where precisely we are going to walk. Well, we're sitting over here and enjoying our sunrise. We're going to link you over to Ali, who would like to say good morning.
Must be her. Why are you looking at me that way? Oh, sorry, I did not catch that we were live. I think that my comms have gotten out of the way. We were very lucky. We had some tracks this morning for leopards on Central, and then we've just decided to do a bit of a loop around, come back around Twin Dams Road, and then just there on the road, we got incredibly lucky with our morning leopard. Oh, where are you going? I wondered. Look, they was looking at us a little bit funny just now, so almost like there was something behind us that it wanted to get. Oh, hi. Looking very pretty this morning. And obviously up to something, because the way that it's walking, you see that it's very careful where it's stepping, and it's keeping its head low, just trying to, is there perhaps some water there that you're going to go drink? Doing a bit of a leopard crawl. Okay, I'm just gonna, just gone behind the tree. Let's just see where it goes, and then we'll be able to follow it through rather than Bundubash and start moving around. I mean, I want to say this actually looks, I'm not sure it's Lalamba, to be honest. I've not seen her in ages. Okay. Is it coming through? Actually looks, yeah, it's a boy. Haha. At least I was right. I don't know who this is. I suspect perhaps maybe Shasha. I know he was around the dam wall for a while. And I'm gonna have to call it. Okay. Yay, it's a new leopard for me. I didn't know Shasha, which is quite exciting. Yeah, because obviously we had some intel that Lalamba, I'm going to turn it, Darren, I'm just going to go forth and then turn it around because this is going to get tricky. We had some information today that Lalamba was seen around the, just watch out there at the back, was seen by the dam wall. And then, of course, we went to follow up there, and then Lex, funny enough, said that there were tracks for a young male leopard coming out from the DRC, which is where we live. Sorry, I have not introduced myself. We are obviously dealing with a leopard and trees. But I'll do that just now before this buffalo thorn gets to us. My name is Ali on camera, trying to keep up with Shasha. The leopard is Darren. And why are you looking at? I wonder what he knows that we don't, because he's not nervous with the cars. It's definitely not us that is making that noise. He's very jittery. And I wonder if perhaps there isn't another leopard somewhere around here, or if he's... I thought he was trying to hunt something, but doesn't look like quite the case. There is a guari bush behind us. Maybe you are hunting something, looking for food. He's looking in great condition, though. Can't say that the tummy's looking empty. Seems like it's been a good day or a good last 24 hours for all the leopards. Where are you going? He's definitely off to something. You see the way he's linking? This is a leopard that doesn't want to be seen by something else, or at least now, because obviously before when we bumped into him, he was walking on the road, and that's normally leopards really not caring who sees them and who doesn't. Easy path for them. And then something caught his attention. Ah, the Ngala. Now we know what he's trying to get into. We're just going to stop here, wait to see if he actually tries to approach the Ngala. I cannot see him right now. Oh, there we go. Perfect. He's just in front of the road, and the Ngala are maybe, I don't know, 20 meters away from him, but there's a lot of dense vegetation in between him and the Ngala, so he might be able to try and get to the Ngala. You see now he's lifting his head because he's still small and he can't really see properly. This is a beautiful leopard. I hadn't seen him before, but he is stunning, and it looks in such great condition. I do have a soft spot for Sibuya because she's a beautiful leopardess, and I think she's made pretty babies, to be honest. I wonder, we're always hopeful that they're going to stick around. Let me see. I don't want to move too much and make a bit of a noise, because we can see the impala, but he's still a little bit far away from them. Let me just try and figure out which way we can do this, because where we are, we can see the impala. Excuse me, not the impala, the nyala, which is another antelope species, a little bit bigger than a nyala. And it's a group of, I can see a male and a female, but I think they've spotted him.
It's on the road that goes past Yari Dam, where the floodlights are, the dam camp floodlights. She turned off to the west of that road.
Just want to see what's happening. I think the female, I think the Nyala know that there's something going around there. Sorry guys, I do know that there are some people looking for leopard, so I'm gonna have to call it in on the radio. But you see these two guys, I'm pretty sure they know something's up.
She was wondering around
I don't think they can see it just yet, because had they seen it, then they would have definitely barked, but I think they can sense something is around here. Perhaps they've heard it walking, or, you know, maybe they've caught a whiff of his scent, or they know something's not right, but they don't fully know it's a predator yet. Antelope are very good at giving these barks when they see something that they should be afraid of.
Just check this was cut line in the British line.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. I think they've seen him. They're barking. You can hear the females giving that. Almost sounds like a dog. Stations are located in Yongmadora Ingwe on Twin Dams Road. Oh. And there we go. And now he's linking back forth onto the road.
Ellie, can I come and join you there?
Ephraim, you can, he's just walking south on the road. He was now busy stalking some nyala. Just come on Twin Dams towards Ingwe Ali Junction, roughly around that area, but he's now on the road. Alrighty. Well, that's not a bad way to start the morning. Yeah, let's see where he goes. I suspect this is probably what he's going to be up to for the rest of the morning, just sort of stalking and then trying to get something. He's not looking too skinny. Standing by.
Good morning. Just confirm for me whereabouts you look at that Ingwe.
I'm on Ingwe Ali now, just coming from Twin Dams Junction.
Okay, copy that. Do you mind if I can grab the standby on that?
You can come as a third.
Okay, copy that. Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay. Diane, I'm not sure if her sister Langa is still around. I mean, it would, because Sibuyi spends also a fair amount of time in Malamala, then I would imagine she could also be further south in that area, so be around the Malamala, Chitwa nets, just areas that we don't really get to traverse a lot, and I don't think are areas where Malamala checks all that often. I don't know when the last time that she was seen was, but if it's been more than a couple of months, then likely she might not be around anymore. But leopards have a funny way of disappearing for a while and then coming back all of a sudden, which is obviously pretty cool. I'm very happy that we've gotten so lucky in the last little while with the boys. I think for a time being, it was mostly the girls all around with Tandi and Sibuyi, and there we go. Definitely on the prowl for something. He's doing well. I'm surprised that he stuck around here, because it would stand to reason that Molowati wouldn't want him around as, you know, the dominant male around this area. Because eventually, the more that Shasha grows, the more he's going to become competition for resources such as food and water, and then, of course, for all the females. I mean, it's the first time I've seen him, but I wonder if he's got a kink in the tail or if he's just carrying his tail in a very leopard-like manner. So most leopards, when they're walking on a road and then they're just patrolling or not really hunting, then that's when you'll see them that they put their tail up like this and they curl it up. And then they just walk around in that way. In this case, he's keeping it quite low, so he doesn't want any other animals around to see that white of his tail. We're going to stick around with him, see what he gets up to, but we'll send you off across to somebody else that wants to say good morning.
Whoa, start of another day. Yeah, at the Lowveld in the Sabi Sand, Djuma. Sounds like Ali has already started the show with quite a bang. Good morning, everybody. My name is Chris, and with me today on camera ops is BK. Now, what we're doing today, just before we head out, we heard a lion roar west of camp, and we now just scanning the area, hoping to get some more audio of that particular lion. It does sound like it's just a little bit too far west, possibly just outside our traversing area. No tracks so far, so we will just continue. And at the moment, we're just warming up with this first little bit of sun rays coming through. It's a lovely, lovely morning, yet a little crisp. And at the same time, being stationary enables us to just listen around to see if we can locate any further vocalization of this lion. And usually just after sunrise they stop vocalizing. So we'll just probably sit here for another 2 or so minutes and then continue.
As we celebrate Women's Month in South Africa, we acknowledge and thank those women committed to conservation, working tirelessly both on the front lines and behind the scenes. The Endangered Wildlife Trust is proud of the women who dedicate their lives to fighting to save species, conserve habitats, and benefit people. Here's to strong women everywhere who are dedicated to protecting forever together.
And I turned to Shaun and I saw that she had this panicked look on her face. Either she was afraid that something had happened or she was afraid that she was going to miss out on something. But instead of her missing out on those lions, we drove up next to them and I switched off the car so that she could hear what was going on. Now, these lions had killed a kudu, and she could hear these 2 cubs, both 8 months old at the time, busy pushing and shoving each other out the way to get to the best parts of the meat. And the mom was lying just to the side in the shade. Now, I'd known that before losing her sight, Shaun probably knew what a lion looked like. But I really wanted her to know what this lion looked like. So for the first time in my guiding career, I started to describe to someone what a lion looked like. And I found that, I started to notice things in that lion that I'd never seen before.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Delivering 6 hours of HD wildlife content live every day is no small feat. It's a massive team effort, and we all rely on one another. Cam ops have a bit of work to do in the morning. Up nice and early, get all the checks out of the way, and make sure we're ready to go live. Helping others fall in love with nature brings meaning to what I do. It's also a lot of fun.
Alrighty, I'm not sure if he's still here. We've just sort of gone a little bit bundu bashing because he went into an area that is a bit tricky, and there is a drainage line, the dreaded drainage line around here. So I think what we're gonna do is go back to the road and head onto the other side. Hopefully we'll be able to see him from there. And then we'll come back and then see him from this side, because I think the other guys can't really see him all that well. So let me just get out of low range so we can go a little bit quicker, and then we'll go onto the other side, see if we can see him. Lex, I'm just gonna go around the other side, see if we can get him from the opposite end.
Yeah, great. Just going down into the stronger. There's some impala on the opposite bank.
Okay, copy. Alrighty, he's definitely stalking some stuff, because then, I don't know if you could hear the communication with Lex, but he says that he can see some impala on the other side. And he is definitely bigger than Marib's, a little bit older for sure. And I mean, I feel like an impala might be an optimistic feat for him, but why not? This is how young leopards learn, and they start measuring and building up their abilities. So if not the impala, well, he was trying with the Ngala. That I did feel was optimistic, especially with the male there. But you never know. Young courage, as they say. Alright, it's a bit of a turnaround road. Unfortunately, there are no quicker ways for me to get around. But Lex is seeing him from this side, so we're just gonna go cross onto Weaver's Nest, and then hopefully we'll get him there. Probably freeze our hands and fingers on the way, but always worth it for a cat. There's been a lot of elephant stuff, let's put it that way. Debris, I'm gonna call it, put on the road. Obviously, they've been enjoying ripping and debarking some things, and they're not always polite and put their stuff off the road. They just kind of love leaving it in the middle of the road. Alrighty, let's see. Hopefully we'll be... Whoop. Just want to make sure that we don't lose Darren on the way. So far, no cameramen have been lost on my watch. So you stand well. I did get him whacked by something just now, but can we please blame the leopard for that? Archie, I would say that he's fully independent, or, you know, still as a young male. This is not his mom's territory at all. She doesn't come up this far, and the fact that he's been hanging around here without her for the last little while bodes well in terms of us being able to determine if he's left his mom or not. So if they were still with his mom, like in the case of Marib's, if it were the case of Marib's, he's still hanging around the mother and or Tandi's territory, or where she has taken him. So let's see. Sorry. I think I saw them in the drainage line here, so I just want to go a little bit slower, make sure that we don't spook whatever it is that's happening. Or maybe I imagined a vehicle? Pretty sure I didn't. But I have been known to make up stuff. I don't know. Let's see. I had Ngana here on a kill once, which was quite interesting. I think it was a diker that he stole from one of his offspring, because he is known for doing that. Little Tingy. I wonder where he's at now. Let me just go a little bit further in. Maybe there wasn't a vehicle. Maybe I just saw something else that was really shiny. Let me just see. Watch out, Darren. Sorry. Just trying to find Chris on the other side of the drainage line. So yeah, I think he's fully independent. I would like it if he stuck around, because as you can see, he comes from a very relaxed mother. Sibuyi is a very nice cat. She's used to vehicles, and then obviously she passed on that sort of not fear of humans and in cars, and also coupled with good behavior from vehicles that saw the leopards. They passed on sort of this attitude that cars are just like big moving things that make a little bit of noise and can be annoying sometimes, but don't really interfere in their lifestyle. So I think that's a good thing for us, because if you stuck around, it would be great. I'm going to carry on trying to find him, but in the meantime, we'll send you guys over to the Mara for a little bit.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Yeah, it sounds like Ali's having a hard time finding that male leopard again. Well, so are we. We still not have any evidence that we can follow of that lion that we heard. So we're just working the area west of camp. I also had some audio of elephants, so we'll just divert our plans, as it often goes out here in the bush, to see what we can find. And we're just north of camp, and that will enable us to look at this ridge close to camp, and that is where I heard these elephants. And we'll probably just up ahead stop, and I'll just scan the area with the binoculars and see if there's not perhaps any visual of elephants. Okay, this is not a great spot. We'll have to continue a little bit. I must say, after a morning like we had yesterday, I probably have to work a little bit to find something. Help me look as I go along. Maybe, just maybe, you can spot something that I don't. Now, the audio we had was just of one single lion vocalizing. Good morning, Susie. Not as closely. They don't huddle as closely as the buffalo. Remember, we had them sort of very tight together. Elephants don't really have much of a problem with cold weather. You know, that's a very large animal. It's a huge animal, and its body surface compared to his weight is actually quite small. So they have more of a problem getting rid of heat than to retain heat. So cooler and cold weather actually suits them. And even if with the lack of like fur or you know, hair, they don't really have that much of an issue. Very good question. Well, in the meantime, while we're still looking for either the elephants or further tracks of that lion that was vocalizing, we're gonna be going over to JP and see what he's doing on his bushwalk.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We're just busy watching some giraffe at the moment, and there's at least 3 of them over here. One is definitely a bull, and then we've got a little young one in front of him, and a female that's a little bit out of our position at the moment behind another bush. So when we do look at them, in terms of their social structure, it might be the dad, but they don't take any form of social responsibility towards the young. They simply mate and move on, and the female is entirely responsible for raising her own young. I also find it interesting when giraffes sometimes forms large groups and then they simply just move off. There's also no leadership in those groups. And the only reason why they gather together is because of high quality feeding, and in the case of sometimes that you have a cow that's an estrus, a number of bulls will associate with that cow. Eventually they'll start becoming less and less and less as the competition wears off, and the most dominant bull eventually takes the prize. Let's just see what they get up to. One of the giraffes that we quite often see in this area, and the reason why we identify him so easily is because of his incredibly dark coat pattern. And generally this is a characteristic of both males as well as very old males, but it can also be due to a double recessive gene from both adults, or both parents in that case. We also see this variation in dark colors with a number of bird species which is in the area, and one of them is a Wahlberg's eagle, which is precisely the same case. Incredibly dark as well as light colors, and both of those are again from a double recessive gene. In this case, a large amount of melanin that has been introduced, providing the incredibly dark colors. This is also one of the animals that I can never get enough of watching. They're such beautiful, elegant creatures, and that's precisely what the word giraffe means. Elegant, or the one that moves gracefully. Other than the elegant appearance, there's also a number of other characteristics which really fascinates me about the giraffe. At the moment you can see how that very specialized neck vertebra, the atlas and the axis, enables it to tilt the head up in an upright position. And then the tongue, have a look a little bit closer. If you can see how that long tongue gets pushed out and then strips those knobthorn flowers off the branches. For those that are joining for the first time, just out of an interesting fact, that tongue can be up to 45 centimeters in length.
Just keep an eye there. It seems like Shasha went into the drainage line and then he was spotted by some impala. And then the impala made him to switch away directions, and then he went further sort of east in the drainage line, which made it pretty impossible for us to be able to follow with a vehicle. So now Lex says he's just lost visual of him going east. So this is the road, the closest road on the eastern side if he does come back this area. So what we're going to do is just loop around, see if maybe he comes on this road or where he was before, and then hopefully we'll be able to catch up with him again. It's very impossible to drive into the donga because it's very steep and then all the way up again. So we don't really want to break any cars. Not sure that we can afford breaking cars at the moment or in general. So you can see that's sort of the bottom of the area, and then hopefully if he carries on coming eastwards, then we'll be able to catch him on the road again.
Okay.
He's obviously busy trying to hunt and trying to get something. I mean, we saw him now have 3 attempts or 3 different things that he's tried to start stalking, but he wasn't successful because he was spotted every time. So he's gonna have to work a little bit harder to try and actually have bring something down to have a meal. But it's not uncommon for big cats. We obviously all love them, and there's something about predators that fascinates all humans, but they're not always successful when they go hunting. More often than not, they're actually not successful, and then it takes them quite a few attempts, perhaps 3 out of 10 times. It's just what their actual success rate is. So especially for a young individual that is not as experienced as an adult, well, it might take them a little bit longer. But as we said earlier, practice makes perfect. So the more he does it, the more he's going to learn little tricks and how to work an area. Also, this is not his usual place. So, we would like him to stick around. I've decided I want him to stay around. He's a very, very pretty leopard. He's cool. He can stay. He can be our friend.
We're still continuing with our plan to either find those elephants or there's a couple of looks like red-billed buffalo weavers as well.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We still have our giraffes. The male has walked off a little bit, and we still have a female and the young one over here. We're just busy watching and looking at what they're up to. One of the things that I do really like about giraffe is that they're incredibly curious, and they often will come and inspect what we are, as they just want to know what is the potential threat in the area, or does it hold any form of danger to them. And it's better to keep your eyes onto a potential danger than to have provided an opportunity to have an element of surprise that it can use against you. Good morning, Mel. See, no, those shoes are seriously stuck. I have not been able to get them out of the mud there. And I don't think I'm going to be able to dig them out either. A few years ago, I also got into a muddy area like that, trying to save a rhino calf that was stuck in a mud wallow. I also lost both pairs of shoes. And then one afternoon, several months later, I saw a hyena walking down the road with one of those shoes, which was quite funny. It's back on our giraffe. There's a second one over there. So just interesting is that I'm always curious when I see these because they almost have similar size age, and we do know that twins will only very rarely occur in giraffe, and that there's still no live records of them actually providing a live birth. So maybe this is one of those unique exceptions that we have in nature. It's also possible that it is a female that was most likely taken by a predator, and the young one just decided to stick with the others. Quite often we see that giraffe calves like to spend time together with one another, and is the reason why they sometimes form large groups. We also find a very similar behavior with Cape eland, with the young ones actually having some form of interest with one another. They form the creches, and then the parents form around that. Once at a certain age, and then they break up, and then they move into smaller units again. Coming back to the giraffe, for those of you that are first-time viewers, these little guys, they're born at approximately a height of 1.4, 1.5 meters, just high enough so that they can reach the udders of the female. And they actually look quite disproportional in terms of their neck and body size and leg length at that point. For those of you that wonder how much they weigh roughly at 70 to 100 kilograms when they are born. But a big bull has got the potential of reaching almost 1,500, 600 kilograms. We're going to stick around a little bit longer, see what these giraffes are up to. But let's go and check out what Ali is up to.
Apologies, we seem to have a bit of difficulties with our feed today, and we are still looking out for those elephants, and the sounds that we heard just now seems to be a little bit further closer south of Djuma Dam, and we're going to be pointing into that direction. Now, we know that on the dam cam there was a leopard seen, very likely Tlalamba, and we're going to work our way down that drainage line towards Twin Dam area, slowly, just looking for tracks and scanning every little bit of bush around it just to see if we cannot perhaps find her. So our plan has changed into a very broad plan. You can make a lot of plans out in the bush, but sorry, the sun is just into my eyes there. But you need to adapt. You know, you might have an initial plan, but often the situation unfolds different to what you anticipated, and therefore you have to adapt. Well, look at this buffalo weavers. Just flew off. Just going to quickly stop for these buffalo weavers, one of my favorite little birds. Red-billed buffalo weavers. And these are the ones responsible for these huge, very untidy sort of stick nests you see around, especially in the marula trees. So they are communal nesters and breeders. They will have a communal nest area where quite a couple of birds will collectively build a nest and breed there. Now, there's a number of dark or black birds of the same size. Good day, Ali. That is a question that I don't have a exact answer for, but I can possibly think that it's just because of their sort of group behavior and the fact that they are dark in color, similar to buffalo. I mean, they don't necessarily associate with buffalo that I know. I'm not sure if there's another species of them further in Africa that perhaps does that. I know Here's a white-headed buffalo weaver further up in East Africa. Be interesting if any of our fans perhaps can come up with a more definitive answer. That's what I love about this, is that you just every now and then, I mean, in guiding in general, you're faced with questions that just opens up a whole new study field. And there's so much to know and to learn, and it never ever stops. Anyway, how to identify them? They'll be in groups firstly. I mean, there's quite a number of black birds of the same size around. And the red beak, very diagnostic, and then as well the little white patch on the wing. There's a dove joining us as well. We're going to link you to Ali. Let's see if she's managed to relocate.
Well, thankfully he popped back on the road, which is a good thing, because we were very happy to be able to race back around here and then see him again. There's actually nothing better than seeing a cat slinking through the... Oh, never mind. Oh, okay. Not sure what's happening. Sorry, there's a bit of a radio issue there, but as I was saying, there's nothing better than seeing sort of a cat of any sort, a lion or a leopard, just slink through the grass like that. As it's funny, because if you walk through this grass, there's all sorts of little things. It gets stuck to your legs, and then, of course, ticks and things jump on you. And they make it seem so effortless. Oh, look at that tail going. So he doesn't have a kink in the tail. He was just holding his tail funny earlier on. Leopard's tails are really expressive. You see there's a little bit of a flick there. He's obviously thinking about something. Perhaps he's upset because the impala saw him earlier. And then that's just when it starts moving like that. But the way we saw him carry that tail earlier was quite funny. We just go forth because he's going into another drainage line, of course. Where would a leopard go? Why would they make it easier when they're hunting? This is actually very normal behavior for them. If they're hunting and if they stay on well-demarcated roads, then they're going to be seen by potential prey species. So a leopard's main asset is just to be elusive and invisible. So they've got to try and keep it that way to then be able to actually get really close to what it is that they're looking for. And if he were to stick on the road, yeah, it would be much better for us, but it wouldn't be great for the leopard or for the intentions of this leopard. If he were a territorial male and he were patrolling, then likely he would stick around the road and then just scent mark on the road, make it very obvious that he's been around here. I can't go this way. I see his tail though. It's just gone straight across, so let's just go around this area. He's going into the Molowati, and I mean, if I were a young leopard that hang on, I don't want to have a branch hit me in the face. I had two almost do that to me yesterday. They kind of have to, I would also stick around the Molowati area. All sorts of drainage lines are very good hidey spots. I mean, it's thick vegetation, it's less chances of being seen by competition or other leopards that are not related. So he's a clever boy. Whatever it is that he's doing, he seems to be doing it right.
Calling all WildEarth explorers, we have a new and frankly awesome travel prize for you to win. andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve encompasses an impressive 28,000 hectares of protected wildlife land in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. As you have seen on WildEarth, andBeyond Phinda showcases one of the continent's finest game viewing experiences and is well known for close-up sightings of the elegant yet elusive cheetah, as well as the rare black rhino. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer before the 16th of September, and you and a friend could be heading to the magnificent Phinda Mountain Lodge, where you will spend 3 nights escaping the real world at this ultimate safari location. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
We're here at the Advanced Rifle Handling Challenge, which is actually lots of challenges in one to gauge the contestants' skills at different distances and different speeds. This is probably the challenge that the contestants are the most nervous about. So let's get them locked and loaded. Competitors are now doing the Hales halt, where they have to run back and forth to a target, turn, take aim, and shoot. And this simulates a chase in a real environment and gets the heart pumping and the blood pressure up. James gave us a demonstration, and the skill involved in this exercise is remarkable.
This is a battle of 2 great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth. Day.
Sorry, I'm just trying to... do you see that big stump?
Yeah. Ready, coming.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you go forward along the river bed, a bit further forward, you should be able to see him. He's lying down now, just sort of on the ridge there. I'm sure you'll get a clear view if you go forward. I'm not sure if you can see him from where you are.
Yeah, thank you. Just as you called, we managed to see him.
Okay, copied.
Thank you. Alrighty, well, this has been quite a runaround. We obviously then legs followed him, and then we came around. We're in the Molowati now, and he's just on the edge of the Molowati. He's decided to start grooming himself with a ball of elephant dung. It's funny how cats like playing with elephant dung. I suppose because it's the most similar thing to a football or a soccer ball, depending on where in the world you are.
Ellie, 5 hours.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I got that in very nicely. Thanks. Pulling out of the area now. I want to try to see if I can get that in Ngala.
Copy that. Alright, let's just go. I'm going to try going a little bit forward, Darren. Maybe we'll be able to actually get a better view from the other side of the tree. No, where are you going? Stay. Groom yourself. Good cat. I mean, it's the yoga session. Gotta laugh when cats decide to start grooming their private parts this way, because it looks always very funny. I do wonder, how flexible they really are. I think perhaps his hunting attempts have diminished or will diminish now. They tend to, when they start grooming themselves like this, then it's just sort of a sign that they're going to start chilling, maybe lying down for a little bit. He might just leave the hunting and the stalking for a little later, and then just try his luck again, maybe towards the end of the afternoon. It's a good spot where he is. There's water not too far. I don't know if Chelopan has got water at the moment, but if not, the dam is not too far away. He's kind of halfway through Twin Dams and Gowrie Dam, so he can choose where he wants to go. He's just grooming himself now.
Yeah,
I'm sure, as we were saying earlier, walking through that grass, you just pick up a lot of things. And then for them, with their furry coats, then they'll just pick up grass seeds and little bits and pieces, and they sort of bother them. So cats are, in general, very clean, hygienic animals, and they love looking clean and squeaky, let's put it that way. So he'll just groom himself all over. I think he's now going for his chest area. No doubt there's a lot of stuff that he picked up in there, because he's sort of grass height or a little bit shorter. So I'm sure his chest has been just taking the brunt of everything that he's been walking through, from this thicket full of guarri bushes to, I'm going to say grassland, but it's a bit optimistic calling it that, and that he walked through earlier as well. That's a very pretty coat. Almost looks like a jaguar now, with those big patches, or those big rosettes. I don't know why I call them patches. It's always fascinating to look at the rosettes, because they're all different. So if you look at a leopard, every leopard has got a different pattern. Leopards are better known to use buffalo dung to cover their scent. In this case, I think he was just kind of lied down there and the ball of dung was there. And I don't think he was using that. It's also very dry. They tend to prefer dung that is a little bit fresher, because then there still have some smell to it. Very dry dung, either buffalo or elephant or whatever other animal, antelope species or herbivore species, and it smells like a little bit of grass. Doesn't really smell like much. So I think in this case he was just playing with it. But as they grow older, then you will see them rolling in the buffalo dung quite often to try and hide their scent, so that they have a better chance at hunting. Okay. I mean, if you look at that spot where he is, it's a good hidey spot. It would be so easy to just drive past if he were lying down and his head was on the side, and then just not see him. So I wonder actually, because we drove around this area so much yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised if him and Klalamba and Molowati were all looking at us like, there they go again, round number 15. Leopards. Funny creatures they are. I think we're going through the grooming session now. Bath time. You know, like some people shower in the morning. I guess this is the leopard equivalent. He's also very alert. You see, he looks very relaxed, but whenever there's a noise, those ears start flicking, he starts moving around, he listens to whatever there is around him. This is a time in a young male leopard's life where they're quite vulnerable, so they've pretty much got to be very sharp with their senses just to avoid danger and avoid putting themselves in complicated situations. So being alert is definitely one of them. Where are you going? I must say, I love when you see leopards through sort of like some green foliage and stuff like that. It almost reminds you like of their essence and what they really are. Because we really do get spoiled in this area with the amount of leopard sightings that we have. But for most people, a sighting like this is a sighting of a lifetime. And I think we sometimes tend to take it for granted a little bit. Because, I mean, how can we not feel spoiled? Are you going to carry on looking for food? Definitely stood up there with some force. But please just, if you come down. Please don't make me go through another drainage line. Legs for Ali.
Right.
Legs, he's moving. It seems like he might just pop out back up where you were.
Go ahead.
He's just started moving again. I'm not too sure which side he's gonna go, but I'll let you know. Where are you going, cat? They know. The vehicle started moving.
Thank you. We're actually going to move out now.
Okay, copy.
Thanks for that signing. Thank you.
Copy. Well, thanks for finding him after the drainage line. Alrighty. Let's go back. Is he gonna come down? We're going to stick around with him, see where he's going, but let's go on to JP and find out where he would go if he were a leopard.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. If I was a leopard, where would I go? I would go and sit on a koppie and I would actually look at everything that's going around me. I love what leopards do. They always sit and watch, and they're very well focused on what everybody is doing in the environment and where to get specific resources. They know everybody's ins and outs, and they know precisely how to stay out of trouble. So one of the things that we're looking at the moment, this was a nightjar that actually got itself in trouble. We're not quite sure who killed it, but it's definitely a bird of prey. And if we look at it over here, it's been ripped along this whole length of a vein, which indicates that it's a bird of prey that used the bull for plucking out the feathers. If the feather tips were broken off, like if it was chewed or if clipped by a nail clipper, that would have been a mammal predator that has got hold of it. So yeah, there's a number of different interesting feathers over here. These are from the wings, and we often see these little wing white mirrors in the wing, which also can sometimes be used for identification feature. However, nightjars can be incredibly tricky to identify, and the best way of actually identifying them is by calls, as well as you take the notch in the primary feathers to look at identification feature. Some of the things that I find particularly interesting is that these are little feathers that are designed like a hydrofoil. They're designed for actually bleeding air over the wing in terms of providing lift. And so is the shape of a wing provided in a very similar way to bleed air over it to create lift. There's a number of other interesting little feathers over here. These already we mentioned as flight feathers. And some of these over here, these are contour feathers. And then we've also got a number of smaller feathers over here, which is down feathers, plumes, and some of the others, which is designed for insulating the bird and providing it with a consistent temperature. I'm also just looking at if I can see any other tracks on the ground over here, which could potentially indicate what managed to get hold of it. But it's very hard on this surface to see what has actually been moving over here. It looks like a partial print of a hyena that came in. Good morning, Tammy Lee, and welcome to the show. Yes, there is also a number of other birds of prey that are nocturnal, and those are owls. And owls are actually well known to predate on smaller owls as well as on birds such as nightjars. Well, we're going to move off and go and see what else we can go and find.
We are looking for anything at the moment. Our plan started off looking for a lion. Nothing materialized. And then we decided to follow up on tracks of a report of a leopard. Early in the morning, nothing came from that. Now we just literally decided we are going to just wait to see what the bush is going to give us. So now I'm just covering ground, trying to find literally anything. And these long, straight firebreak roads are often a very good place to start off, because one can often just sit down and scan the area. Your binoculars, as well as a nice open area to look for tracks. Talking about tracks, there's one of the many species of doves we have here, the Cape Turtledov. It's found throughout South Africa. And you can see how it's walking on the ground. So early morning like now, if we see any fresh track of an animal, this is one of the indicators as to more or less what time you can place the track. So if there's no tracks of doves over it, we know that it is rather fresh, or you can use it as one of the indications. If there's some dove tracks over them, you know it's probably before sunrise. Because these doves starts moving around on the ground very early in the morning, even just before the sun rises. And such a common bird, but very, very useful when we are tracking animals and trying to figure out how fresh the tracks would be.
Shasha's decided to carry on moving, and I think he cannot decide if he wants to go into the Molawati or not. He goes up and down and up and down. So we're just going around again. We just last saw him going down, but then he never came down. I think he came back up. So we're just trying to see if we can find him again. Oh, there he is. He's walking right there through the Tamboti thicket. Actually looks very cool. So he's just gonna pop in front of this quarry. Unless he goes down. Cat, what are you doing? It was quite funny because we were chatting now about JP's replies, what he would do if he were a cat. And then Darren very politely said, if he were a leopard, he would jump on a termite mound and stare into the golden sun to make our lives easier. Which I thought was quite cool. Because everybody likes a cat in the golden sun or with the golden light. It's just trailing along the drainage. It's a good area just to keep himself hidden, but then a lot of the times there are antelope species that come and feed off the foliage in the drainage line as well. You see he's still sort of keeping his tail down, not putting it up. Let's try and catch up with him because I'm not sure where he's going now. I mean, his general direction has just been to walk parallel.
Mike, come in, Mike.
Sorry, I'm just gonna go this way. Carry on. I'm just gonna carry on this way because I don't think he knows if he wants to go down or stay up.
Cool.
Thanks. Alrighty. Oh, there he is again. Maybe he just doesn't like the feeling. He's just groomed himself, so maybe he doesn't like the feeling of the sand among his paws. Could also be. Leopards are quite finicky animals. And I don't mean finicky in a bad way. They're just, it's just the way they are. Where are you? Megan, I agree. Leopards do like making us work really hard for sightings. Now he's just stopped in a spot where it's a nice spot, but not a good spot for a car. So if I go forward in there, I might be able to get a better spot, but then how will I get myself out? It's fine. I'm working my clutch leg. My left leg will be far more developed and stronger than my right one. It's normally the way it goes with leopards, but it's fine. We like them, and it's fun to just go and drive through the bushes and so on, following pretty much any animal. I do think wild dogs, though, if I could choose one, they are the ones that make you work the hardest because they don't often stick with the road. And, do they change direction and they go very quickly and then it's up and down and moving around. So it becomes a little bit harder. There is a diker that I can see straight ahead of us on the other edge of the drainage line, but I'm not sure that's what he's seeing. I don't think he's got a straight line of sight from there to where the diker is, because there are a lot of bushes and things in between. But if he carries on going that way, he might be able to just to spot the diker, and maybe he'll go down the drainage line, come up the other side. It'll be interesting. He's back to grooming himself, so obviously there are little things that he's picking up that he's not too thrilled about. I mean, his rosettes are very funny. They do look very big, almost jaguar-like. We're just missing that little dot in the middle to be a jaguar, and also for him to be a little bit bigger and on another continent. But you know what I mean. Got a pretty face. Reminds me of someone, but I can't put my finger down onto who. Maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit like Tavangumi face. Although, as far as I know, they're not related. They've potentially never even met. I wonder, have you been able to spot anything there? Where are you going? Nazreen, I agree with you. The rosettes are very beautiful, or his specific rosettes are beautiful. I think it's interesting, and it's always fun to look at all of them because they're all these little shapes, and I find that leopards always have one that I almost like to call the bell rosette, because it's almost has a bell shape, and it's normally a dot at the top, and then almost like a fan of spots underneath that one dot. I'm sure if we look hard enough, we'll be able to find a couple of those ones. And then there's always a burger one. Looks like a sandwich, you know. You've got the top bun and the middle bun. See, this is where you start wondering about when you see too many leopard spots and you start looking at their patterns. A lot of them have smiley faces, like Tingy. And then, yeah, the spot pattern on their whiskers, which is actually, you know, what a lot of the times we use to ID leopards. But in terms of research, for us in guiding, it's worth it having the spot pattern on top of their whiskers, because then we know exactly what leopard it is. But when it comes to doing actual research, it's much easier to deal with the side or the flanks of the leopard than actually looking at the face. The reason for it is that when you work with leopards, a lot of the times you get camera trap images, and they are triggered when an animal walks by or in front of the camera, and they're not the best quality. They're good cameras because obviously they're meant to be left on the field for quite a long time and take many photos. So if you need many photos, even though you've got a big camera, and if you have file sizes that are too heavy, or too big, then the camera is gonna fill up really quickly. So actually what you tend to use more is actually the flanks of the leopard to be able to ID animals or to ID specific individuals. I had to do it for my thesis, and I couldn't identify one animal using sort of their face spots. Very few that just sort of happen to walk very close to the camera. But other than that, and because their pattern is unique throughout their coat, and it becomes a little bit easier as well. But it's funny what movement and distortion and angles do to try and ID, because then you look at something and you'll be like, I'm pretty sure it's this animal, but it's looking funny, the spot doesn't seem to be in the right place, and then you just compare the two images and it turns out that you're looking at the wrong, sort of like the wrong part of the animal. Or you've just got to have a bit of a creative mind and think outside the box. Oh, are you going to stop there now? Can we come closer to you then, Kat, if you're not going to carry on going down the Molowati? Still alert. I don't think he's given up on his sort of hunt, but he's not that interested, definitely not as much as he was before. So we're just going to obviously spend some time with him. There's nobody else that wants to come, so yay for us.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Well, finally something that we can work with. Now, we just spotted a sequence of leopard tracks here, and this seems to be fairly fresh. It looks like a relatively young female. One can see the track right over there. And You can see the pad and then the 4 individual toes there. Now, why I say it's rather fresh, we can see the track of a genet here, much smaller than a leopard. And although you can't see it in this sequence, she has stepped on top of the tracks of the genet. Now, genets are strictly nocturnal. Leopards do sometimes move early mornings as well, as we've just seen with Ellie. And leopards going that way. Also, I'm not sure if BK will be able to get this, but there's another track here of the same leopard, and right here you can see a little mouse track, and she's also stepped on top of the mouse tracks, and therefore it is another indication that it could be rather fresh. Now, if I have to estimate, there were no wind or anything this morning. This could be just before sunrise, so which places us a couple of hours behind this animal. Now, it is walking straight on the road, so that could either mean the animal's just trying to move to another area, perhaps to look for prey. It also could have been busy scent marking its territory. Now, remember, both males and females leopards are territorial. So leopard females will have their territory and they'll defend, and males will defend theirs against other males. But the difference between the territories of males and females is that males have substantially large females. So you'll often have a case where within an area you'll have multiple females with their individual territories. You'll have males engulfing several females. To give you an idea, in this area, trees probably around 5,000 hectares. The males could be 5-6 times that. So we're going to continue tracking this animal and just try and get an idea of where she went.
RSA has a long history, over 90 years, of being involved and even pioneering aspects of the conservation sector in South Africa. Over that long history, we have realized that all of the issues that we are facing both locally and globally are due to human impact. Therefore, we need to concentrate on working with people, and that is what WESA does. What makes me passionate about the work that we do at WESA, and in particular the work that I engage in, is actually connecting with people. Currently the work that I'm working on is working with youth in a skills development program, and just to meet the youth and to hear their stories and to bring them opportunities that we hope will have some impact on their lives really fuels me to get up every morning. A huge shout out to the women that I work with, as well as to all the women that are contributing hugely within the environmental sector, both in South Africa and in the world.
We got there, he had probably moved a couple of 100 meters down the river and was about 10 meters from this causeway. So I radioed the lodge quickly and just asked them to bring a land cruiser around and some tow straps. So we thought we were going to try be heroes and save this giraffe. And now a big bull, probably over a ton, he's a big unit. Got the tow strap one side of the giraffe and managed to get it around him with a boat, and the other edge of the tow strap obviously back onto the bank. So we made this U around him because he was lying quite close to the bank. And we put that land cruise in low range and we just gave it hell and pulled that giraffe, and the tow strap slipped up and we thought, oh no, it's going to slip off the top of the head, and it caught on his ossicones at the top. And that last 10 meters pulled him out onto the bank, and he battled. He was obviously quite weak and all that.
Looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is the call of desperation with a cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops. Oof.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So we'll stick in this area a little bit longer and just maybe check a few of the water holes here. We saw some rhinos on one of the loops that we did, but we had absolutely no signal there, so we weren't able to show you that. But there's some beautiful birds out and about. There's a bit of sun finally. So this morning it was amazing. This morning the sky was completely clear. Well, I say this morning, it is still the morning. When there was sunrise, there was not a cloud in the sky. There was just a bit of mist and like some clouds hanging over the ocean, and they all seemed to have rolled inland because we went very cloudy for a long time. But it looks as though the sun is now winning the battle. So there's some beautiful waterbuck over there. There was a big bull as well. Oh, look at those Nyalas running at the back. They've stopped. The Nyalas and the waterbucks are looking at something now. I don't know what they're looking at, what they've seen. Maybe there is one Nyala lagging behind. Maybe they got a fright because of him. But we smelt the scent marking of the leopard. So I think we were quite hot on its tracks, but we weren't able to catch up to it. Or maybe we were able to catch up to it, but it was very, very, very well hidden. But we keep trying. What I'm very happy about is that there's no wind this morning. There's just a slight breeze, but nothing compared to what we've been experiencing. Oh, Odie. Okay. See you on those little grebes. There's a squawko heron with a frog, Odie. Do you see on the corner where it bends to go in? Do you see it there? There's a little bit of movement on the bank there. I'll help you. If you go in there and down below to the bank on the near side. Yeah, that bank. There you go, the patch of white on the right-hand side. Yeah, there he is. It's actually got a little frog in its beak. And it's busy making sure that it's dead before it swallows it. It's quite a distance away. Sorry for the movement. I just want to sit down to see what... Oh, you can make out that there's a frog in that heron's bill. That might be another bird for a few of you. That's a squawko heron. See how it picks up and shakes that frog, and then repositions it in its beak, and then shakes it again and washes it in the water. Sorry. So he's just rinsing some of the slime off as well, and making sure that that frog is well and truly dead before he tries to swallow it. I was just saying to Odie before that earlier on in the year, the water holes were like, because they were so full and there was water everywhere, water holes were a little bit quiet. Still exciting because there was so much water around and what have you, but going there was not that exciting. But now, that there's only a few of these bigger waterholes left. All the activity is concentrated around these waterholes, so there's lots of birds. The big crocodiles that are left over, that are still left at these waterholes, especially in winter now. Towards the end of winter, you get to see them out of the water quite a bit. See that crocodile just cruising, looking for a spot on the bank. So while we've had no success with our leopard, we are going to stick in this area a little bit longer and see if we have any luck here. In the meantime, send you back across to Ali with her leopard.
We have actually been really lucky, and Darren and I were just saying, we did ask for a leopard on top of a termite mound in the Golden Light, and I mean, sort of, kind of what we were hoping for. We just weren't truly specific. We had to say, like, a big termite mound with no trees in between them and us. But I think Shasha's done, he's sitting in what looks like a mini termite mound. And he is warming up in the sun. I think he's actually quite happy because in that spot where he is just being hit directly by the sun. So no time like the present to warm up and then just be happy. He has been moving around, and I suspect he was moving around quite early this morning or throughout early hours of the morning. So he's earned his rest. He pretty much, this is where we last saw him when you guys were with us. He hasn't really moved. It seems like there was something in the bushes ahead of him that kind of got him interested for a little while. So he sat up and then he just was looking in that direction very attentively. Completely missed the tiger that we saw on the other space, on the other side of the drainage. But whatever it was, I don't think it was something that was really interesting to him. Perhaps there was a little squirrel just jumping around, and then that's what he was looking at. I mean, leopards this age, they are known for hunting squirrels and mongoose and francolins and guinea fowl and sort of smaller prey species than perhaps an adult would, like an impala or a Ngala, although he did try, definitely twice while we were looking at him. He was just spotted every time, so maybe it's just got to learn to keep his tail a little bit further down. And it could also be that it was just bad luck. I mean, we did hear the impala alarming at him, but we don't know how they saw him, so it could be because the impala were on higher ground that they had the advantage this time, but not for lack of effort. When we saw him, as we said, he had his tail down. He was just sort of slinking away, keeping his head below the grass. But now he's just decided he's done. I always wonder, though, I was having this conversation recently with someone, what it would feel like to just, walk around the bush as a human and then just decide to lie down somewhere. Like, this is where I'm going to sleep. I'm happy here. It makes me happy. And then just lie down without a worry that you're going to get eaten or squashed by something. Obviously, leopards are alert, and they have to be, because other leopards or lions or elephants will definitely not like having a leopard around this area. But they're also pretty confident in their abilities of being able to get away from danger quite quickly. Whereas for us, would we though? Would we be able to know, or wake up or hear a lion or a leopard stalking us, even if we were sleeping in an open area like this? I'm not sure we would. Oh, he's picking up, looking at the birds that are fluttering about. We've heard some lions roaring while we've been here, but they all sound like they're far away. And I know the Nkuhumas were seen yesterday, just on the other side of the traverse, sort of around Vessel's area. And then I think they moved into our Athusa yesterday afternoon. So it could be that those were the ones that we were hearing, because it definitely... there's a starling there. Good morning. I don't think Shasha appreciates your calling. He gave you a very grumpy look. You could be dinner if you were on the ground. We're going to stick around with Shasha, see what he gets up to, but let's head over to Grant and see if he's had better luck.
Look at that darter, looking a little bit disappointed. He's dropped his fish. He had a fish. No, he's lost it. I think it got away. He had a fish in his beak, and then he was like juggling it, trying to reposition the fish in his beak so that he would have the head facing down towards the throat so he could swallow it without any of the spikes catching him on the way down. And in the process, dropped it back into the water. Maybe a lack of experience there. I think he's officially lost his fish kill. The Egyptian geese are having a huge disagreement at the moment. Kevin, I can't speak for the birds, but yeah, from what we've seen, the bigger crocodiles tend to not really go for birds. But remember, the crocodiles are they're not forced out of the water. So when they're lying on the bank there, the birds will not be afraid to go and approach quite close to the crocodile. And to us, it appears that they're not scared because they aren't of that specific crocodile. So they are afraid of crocodiles. They know what crocodiles can do. But when they can see a crocodile, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. When they can't see a crocodile, that's when they have to worry. And so even if there's one in the water, you'll see birds going very close to it, because it's not in an ambush or hunting scenario, or it hasn't got itself in an ambush position. But they'll be well aware of movement in the water, under the water, and that might alert them to the presence of a crocodile that could be hunting. But if they can see from the crocodile's body language that it's not hunting, then they have nothing to worry about. Same goes with the antelope species. If they can see a lion or they can see a leopard that's just walking through, they'll keep an eye on it, and it'll appear as though they're not really scared of it, but just because they know that it's not hunting, it's just passing through. There's two young waterbuck sparring there, OD. Do you see them at the back? They've stopped now. Oh, a big crocodile coming out of the water. He just lay down. Look at that. He's still moving a little bit. Geez, really giving us an idea of its size. It's about 50 meters behind the other crocodile. And you can just see the size difference. That one is enormous. And you see the Egyptian geese going closer to it, just keeping an eye on it. Yeah, So we're having such a great time here at this waterhole. There's still lots going on. So we're going to sit and enjoy and send you back to Chris, who's still checking his cats.
Grant seemed to be having quite a productive day at the waterhole there. Crocodiles and Egyptian geese and all sorts of things. Now, we've followed the trail of this leopard now for about another kilometer, and we were fortunate that she stuck to the road. She just crossed into one of these blocks, and just up here she came out. Now, there's some fresh buffalo tracks here as well. You can see there's a whole big buffalo paw. And it's probably from early morning, I would say about 3-4 o'clock-ish. You can see this dung is still relatively soft. And you can see how this leopard has stepped on top of the buffalo tracks. There's quite a few sequences here. And also this little wetness here that you get was very likely urine from a buffalo. And she stepped on top of that. And she is continuing northwards. And hopefully we'll continue to track her and try and find her. Now, I'm not sure whether this buffalo group is the same one we saw yesterday. It's difficult to say with the tracks that we have here. It could be just a small group of bachelor males as well. And from the looks of it, all of them are fairly large tracks. So I think it's just a small bachelor group of buffaloes that's potentially trailing that large group or herd. But our interest is this one, this lady. And the fact that it's on top of all these buffalo tracks is a very, very good sign for us. Now, the sun is starting to get pretty high, so this is often time where leopards will start to settle down. But hopefully we'll be able to get a glimpse of her. Maybe she's decided to get up into a tree or lie on a termite mound to sun herself, if we are lucky. So I'm going to continue. It seems like she is continuing on the road, and we'll just look for further signs. And if it gets any fresher, we might just be in luck.
Well, we are back with the grooming cat, but we had... What is it that they call it? 30 seconds of intense courage. So you see the tree that is just behind him. He stood up, and then we could see that he was looking at something and went down in the Molowati. We didn't actually know what it is that he was looking at. But that tail started flicking, and with leopards, you know, when that tail starts going like that, there's something that he was interested in. He went down, and then we didn't move because we didn't know if he was hunting something, and we didn't want to move and spook anything because it would have been a complicated maneuver. And then all of a sudden, out of the grass, just shooting straight up, comes a leopard. And then we look up. Oh, thank you. Right on cue. And up on the tree, right up there, comes running a genet of all creatures. So he knew that there was a genet around there, and I thought maybe he was looking at a squirrel, but actually he was looking at this furry little creature that is up there somewhere on the tree. And as soon as the genet was being followed by the leopard, it just went straight up onto the tree. They are arboreal creatures, and they do nest in hollows of the trees and so on. And then it's just pretty much now standing at the top of the tree with the leopard all the way down at the bottom. There we go. That little thing over there, that adorable little ball of fluff, is a genet that had a near miss with the leopard at the bottom. So it's quite funny because he just sort of stood down at the bottom of the tree looking at the genet looking down. And I feel like this is a scene we've seen often, not with a genet or a leopard, but it's normally the leopard on top of the tree with the kill, and then the lion at the bottom waiting for the leopard to either drop the kill or to find a way to go up. As you can see, it's not the easiest tree. I think had it been another type of tree where it would have been a bit more of an easy access, then Shasha would have tried to go up and perhaps get it, because I've seen them do that with squirrels before. But a bit of a complicated tree, so he just kind of sat at the bottom, left it for a little bit. And now, obviously, he's decided it's not worth his time anymore. So he's just moving back to where he was, perhaps to sit back on his sunny spot. Let's just see if the genet does come down. It would be quite nice to see or to have a view of the genet. Nope. Shasha, I can just see him walking away, flicking that leopard tail in an angry manner, perhaps because he yet again missed another meal. And, oh, he's gotten back to that spot. So I actually just want to stick around with the genet for a bit, as it's quite a special creature that we don't get to see too often. And I do know that Shasha is just lying down there, so perhaps we can get the best of both worlds. I can't see. We get two species of genet around here, the large spotted and the small spotted genet. Normally the tip of the tail is the giveaway. I think the small spotted genet has a black tip of the tail, and then the large, actually the other way around, and then the large spotted genet has a white tip of the tail. It's got a very big tail, long tail. And they're actually more closely, if I'm not mistaken, these guys are more closely related to actually mongoose than any other creature. We used to have one in camp that we used to call it Genevieve. Well, Genevieve, I think, yes, Genevieve was the one in camp, and then there was one that used to live close to Treehouse Dam a couple of years ago that we used to call Janet Jackson. And it was always nice to sort of try and keep up with them and see what they were up to. Now, I actually haven't seen a genet in a while, so it's nice to, and especially not in the daytime. They're more active during the night, so that's when we really get to see them, or a lot of the times on the trees. I think this guy up there in the tree was just at the bottom of a little jackalberry, and it was moving around. Oh, I think it sensed that the leopard is gone. It's not the easiest spot to be there. Perhaps an older individual, hungrier individual would have waited for the genet to come down, but I think Shasha realized that, is it worth it? Is it worth the effort to just wait patiently on top of the tree for so long for the genet to come down? Are you going to turn your face around? I've got really cute faces. Hello, little one. Yeah, you got lucky today. Really got lucky. It's a bit of a tattered year, so it must be an older genet. Actually, it's quite... I think this is the best genet sighting I've ever had in my entire life. We don't get to spend too much time with them, because like I said, they're mostly nocturnal individuals, and we don't see them all that often. They camouflage really well. I mean, it would be so easy to assume this is just a tangle of leaves if we were to drive past here and then just miss it. And it actually took us a while when Shasha started following. We couldn't figure out in which tree the genet had gone up to. We were just going by him looking up. And then as we turned around, because also with the light behind us, it was a bit difficult. Oshim, are you shaking? Is all the adrenaline coming down? Or is it cold up there? I don't blame you. Quite a morning. near miss for the leopard and for the genet. I thought I heard more lions roaring, but I was mistaken. Oh, look at those ears. I'm not sure how long genets tend to live for. I would assume like most creatures around here, they would probably have a lifespan of about 10 years or so. Perhaps a little bit less than that, obviously more so in captivity. But I'm going to have to go back and do some genet research. It's exciting when you get to see some things and actually have to think a little bit more about your knowledge about them. So like I said, I think in my entire guiding career, this is the best genet sighting I've had. Shame. I think it did get like a big fright, and then it ran up really quickly. Sharon, yeah, many people do keep genets as pets, but they shouldn't, because they can be habituated, and they are still wild animals. So I do know that they're sort of easy animals to rehabilitate into the wild. I have met a number of people, because genets tend to nest either on holes of trees, and a lot of the times they use lodge structures, so the thatch roofs and things like that, to have their little ones, and sometimes it happens that the little ones fall onto the ground. So I've met a number of people throughout lodges that they sort of like raise them, but then they let them go, or they don't keep them as pets. Not like they're going to keep a chain. They just rehabilitate them and let them go back into the wild. But there is a very big problem, I would imagine, all throughout Africa and really the world, where people want to keep wild animals as pets because it's cool. So we shouldn't actually try to keep any of these animals indoors or locked up. I mean, it happens with leopards. It's a big thing for cheetahs, because cheetahs are very docile creatures, and especially in the United Arab Emirates, it's become quite a bit of a problem where a lot of sheiks reportedly keep the cheetahs as pets. They put chains on them, and I understand that we all love these creatures and they are beautiful animals to look at, but they belong in the wild, not in a cage or on a sofa or the back of the car. It doesn't matter what animal they are. So if there's the time that the saying, if you love something, let them go, it's never truer than when you're referring to wildlife. If you really love an animal, just leave them in their wild environment to be who they are supposed to be. I mean, I would love to have a pet, Janet. In my head, I have a utopic world where I speak to animals and all my friends, and sadly, I think that's just, it's just going to be my alternative world, not this one. Janet, are you going to come down? We were kind of hoping that you would. How was that noise? I don't know if Josh is still around. I thought I'd seen his ears earlier. Let me just have a look through binos, because he's just far enough that my eyes won't be able to distinguish him. I know he's still asleep. I see spots. It's just hiding between the grass now. If the genet, depending on how much movement the genet did to the tree or how much it disturbed the tree when coming down, I think Shasha would just be a little too far to actually get to the genet. And if it wanted, it could actually jump from tree to tree and then just sort of run up. We actually thought by the level of noise, and maybe it was after a duiker or a Sten Buck, because it sounded like, it ran away, and we actually thought that Shasha had missed, and whatever it was had spotted him and had run up the Molawati. But then it was the genet just being very clever and then coming for the cover of the tree. It's just got the one leaf on the face that I can't see if he's actually falling asleep. Nazreen, I've seen plenty of leopards fall out of trees, especially cubs, because they're not that agile yet, and then they tend not to really know. Not really high trees. I haven't seen them have a massive fall, a leopard cub, but when they're starting to learn how to go up and down, then it does happen. Also, older leopards sometimes misjudge how much weight a dead branch can support, and then I've seen them sort of fall down off the trees as well. I think there was also that evidence of that very cool video that was going around that was filmed in Londolozi, where I don't know which leopard was on the tree with the kill, and then a lioness came up, and then the branch of the tree fell with both the lion and the leopard sort of jumping, falling down. And I think it was a lucky thing that the branch broke and fell, because then that gave the leopard enough of a chance to just run away. Otherwise, because they were fighting up in the tree. Otherwise, I think perhaps the leopard wouldn't have had the best of luck. So it does happen that creatures fall off the trees, but cats being cats, they tend to fall on their feet, and then just as soon as they land, then they just run away. Genets, on the other hand, I'm not too sure. I would imagine they would be the same. Sadly, I haven't been exposed to too many of them, but they're definitely very nice little creatures. And they have the cutest babies. They're about a miniature version of a big genet. There was actually one of our friends that lives in a reserve. He raised a genet called Jessica, because, and he raised her, but she could come in and out of the house whichever way she wanted, and then she went to the extent where she actually mated, had little ones, and then brought them back to the house. And then those little ones have now left the house and then have just gone off looking for their own territories in their own spaces. So it's nice when you see that they...
Struggling to find it.
You're struggling to find it. I think you're too low. I think you're Like, no, it's, if you see my finger on the monitor, I think it's somewhere around there. No. Darren and I are going to try to find the genet again, but while we do that, I'm just going to go quiet. No, go up.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Our competitors are in the room behind me right now for the birding challenge, where they have to look at pictures and identify the birds and then separately listen to bird calls and identify them. But it's not easy. This is going to be the toughest one. Here we have the previous year's winners. You can see they're trying to see if they can remember all the answers, and look at them taking a sneak peek.
Well, seems like the genet has started moving, so we're kind of hoping that it will climb down. I mean, I say started moving, but he's taking it. Oh, okay, I see a branch moving more, and I see the tails linking down. He's definitely, or she, I actually don't know, can't tell from here. He's going to try and slink down. Try and potentially not alert the leopard or Shasha that it's trying to come down, because if it's a little bit too complicated to come down, and it makes a lot of movement and noise, then Shasha will definitely know that it's trying to do something and might just come and sit at the bottom of the tree and wait for it. I actually cannot see it anymore. With my own eyes, thank goodness for the camera. So it's being very, look at that beautiful face. Those beautiful white. So that white, because they are nocturnal creatures, that light, what it'll do, it's sort of a little bit of the inverse of a cheetah, very similar to leopards and their white under their eyes, and same with lions. It's just to reflect the light in low light conditions so that they can see a little bit better at night. As I mentioned earlier, they are nocturnal creatures, so they have certain adaptations that allow them to be more successful in the times that they are active, whereas compared to the times that they're not. It's just very likely gonna jump down on the opposite side. Just pick up my line to see if Shasha can see anything. No, I still see the spots. I think he's fast asleep. Obviously, we haven't wanted to move because movement would perhaps disturb the scene, so we just want to let the animals play it out the way that they would like to. But there's another tamboti tree just behind, bush willow tree just behind this one that the genet is in. So perhaps it's going to try, yeah, it's going down the main branch because it's easier. There we go. Oh, you got lucky. I mean, why aren't you still running, Genet? Run. Away. Shasha? No idea. Not even woken up. I can't see the genet anymore. There are the birds alarming for the genet, because the genets will eat chicks and eggs and little birds or hunt them down. So you hear that? I don't know if you guys can. All that chee 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 chee. Very much like they would do with a leopard or a snake. They have started alarming for the genets. And basically what they're doing is just telling the genet that it's been spotted and needs to go away somewhere else. But I don't think the genet is too concerned about the birds. He was definitely just trying to get away from the leopard. Cool. Well, I don't know where he went, but I'm glad he survived, or she survived the encounter. Let's go to Shasha, see what he's up to. I mean, I did, when we saw it running, I was like, oh, genet, no. And I did tell Shasha that a genet is not acceptable leopard food. So I'm glad that genet had the upper hand. I do hope that Shasha gets something else, and it's just because genets are such rare creatures that we don't get to see often that, you know, your heart just kind of stops for a second. So I want him to eat, but, you know, can I have at least an opinion on what he eats? Well, it's like, you know, when lions chase leopards, you're like, no, and then you start stressing. Now I'm gonna have to try and figure out where it is that Shasha was, so I don't want to wake him up, because he was also like hidden in the grass. So you see the grass in front of us is quite tall, so when he lies down on the side, we won't be able to see him. I think this is where we were parked, and he was just somewhere around here. Maybe around here somewhere. In front of us. No, that's not a leopard. I don't know if maybe there. No, we've lost the leopard. Hey Shasha, where are you at? Oh, there we go. I was just not looking in the right spot. Let me know when you get a nice view of him.
Back, sorry.
Back. Alrighty. There we go. I'm just gonna try and get my head out of the way so that... That's a very sleepy cat. Of course, with the one branch. Well, the branch, fair enough, not quite in there, but with a lot of grass in between its face, and it was just lying down. So I think he was not too bothered about the genet coming down of the tree, probably given up. But as we were saying earlier, you know, predators are opportunists, so they're always gonna take what comes to them. And if they had he obviously heard the genet and assessed that it was quite close by and that it was potentially a good meal, not only a good meal, but that he could get it. So I'm sure that's why he went after it. I mean, had it not been as bushy and full of trees as it was, perhaps he would have actually gotten lucky. I think in this case, the genet just had the sort of the home advantage because of everything that was surrounding him. But I wouldn't be surprised if then Shasha just lies down here. He's got a good spot. You know, it's nice and hidden. It's gonna be nice and sunny today, so he's got a shady spot. And if the sun does get him at some stage, then there are a lot of little hidey spots where he can come and just lie down during the day. Lots of trees where he could potentially go up. I don't know if he's an arboreal cat. Leopards are funny that way. Some leopards do like going up trees and stashing their meals up trees to get them away from hyenas and other potential predators. And some leopards just kind of don't really do trees, or yeah, they'll go up and down. Well, I thought it was interesting always. Shadow was, I don't think I only once saw her hoist a kill into a tree, but all her kills were always on the ground. And Tandi, she'll put them on the trees often, and it's, you know, litter mates that were raised by the same mother, and then they just have completely different habits. So it's also interesting how their personalities shine through in their preferences to what to do with their food. I think we've got a sleepy cat now. And it actually looks like a comfy spot too. There's a lot of grass there, so he's probably going to be nice and cushioned. Very funky cat. Shame. You would definitely not be able to see him coming from either road. And as we've seen today, because he was hunting, I mean, other than when we bumped into him on the road, he actually hasn't really walked on any road. He's just gone across roads. So, excuse me, if we wanted to track him, it would actually have been very hard because he's been walking on areas that are very difficult for the eye to actually try and see where he's been, because he's been mostly, yes, he's been on sandy patches, but then he's walked a lot on the ground. So that's actually quite hard to distinguish. Oh, talking about tracking, seems like Chris is still on the tracking mission, so let's go over to him. Hopefully he'll get some luck.
It seems like the leopard there has decided it's time to call it a morning and busy sleeping. Now, we have been all western and southern parts of Djuma, and we are just finding leopard tracks everywhere without results. And we are just gonna go and sit at a water hole now, since our tracking is not yielding any desired results. And not that that's a problem. And we've obviously had a nice leopard today with Ali. And we also have this afternoon to perhaps look for them again. So we'll focus on some of the smaller aspects and lesser known things if we can find them. And first up now on our amended plan would be to go to Treehouse Dam. It's treated me well in this last week. Always seems to be something happening there, even if it's just a very cool bird. And it's about 200-300 meters ahead of us. So we'll be there very soon. One thing I noted is that there seems to be no elephants around, even since yesterday afternoon. And I've hardly seen any tracks even. And remember last week I mentioned this, that it was amazing to have so many elephants, a lot of different herds around, and that they could disappear any day. And that's exactly what happened. So let's hope that they will return soon. In a way, it's also good. You know, it builds a little bit of anticipation if they do disappear for a few days. I mean, look at last couple of days, we've been very low on leopard sightings, tricky to find, and suddenly the last 2 days we've had leopard 2 days in a row, which is phenomenal. That's a nice time of the day to start focusing on water holes. It's going to be fairly warm today. So this afternoon might even be better idea to just select a water hole and just go and sit there. All right, so let's see what we've got here. Right, there we go. Oh, there's something you don't see often. Wow, if we can get that. That is unusual to see. And though it's not an unusual antelope, and that's a Sten Buck. And the significance here is that they very rarely drink surface water. A Sten Buck can survive even in arid regions like the Kalahari and semi-desert areas, and they can get more than enough moisture from the plants that they consume. I've even seen them adapt their feeding habits to feed on plants, especially when there's morning dew. And I must say, this is one of the very, very few occasions in my career where I've seen a Sten Buck literally drink water. I guess it's because it is available. And it probably knows it's going to be a warm day. He's gulping it up. It's not something you actually see every day. Well, he's surely drinking quite a bit. Now, there's a pied kingfisher around on me. If he sticks around, we might try and get him in, but he's moved over now. Now, Sten Buck is not found in groups. They solitary or actually monogamous antelopes. So you'll have monogamous pairs that will settle themselves in an area, and they forage alone. Sometimes at night they join up together, and they typically would browse on very low level vegetation, usually less than about 1/2 meter high. Forbs, herbs and so forth, and then some smaller woody plants where they'll focus on the fruits and the leaves. And these type of plants that they consume are not as widespread as the general grasses and so forth. They're very specific plants, and that's one of the reasons they've evolved and developed this social structure where they do not live in herds, because there's very isolated clusters of their food around. So you can imagine if there's 20 of them, there's one little bush to feed on, it's not going to work. So therefore they forage alone. Hi, Jerome. I'm not sure whether you're referring to when they drink. When they drink, they don't drink like cats and dogs, where they first lick it up with the tongue and then transfer into the mouth. They do drink with the mouth and lips slightly submerged into the water and then creating a suction, much like most hoofed animals will do. I do suspect in arid areas, if there are dew that formed on plants, that they might lick that up. That's a possibility. But as far as drinking water, which they very seldom do, this is why this is so special and interesting. And it is very, very well documented in literature about Sten Buck, is that they very seldom drink water. And they get most of their fluid needs from the plants that they consume. Well, this is phenomenal. Now, I'm trying to think now if I've ever seen a Sten Buck actually drink water. I'm sure I have once or twice earlier in my career, but it is definitely not very common.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We're still busy following a breeding herd of buffalo, and we would like to try and find them as quickly as possible. The tracks are all good, but it's all mulling around in the area. So a number of dung patches that we found has been ice cold. This one's slightly warmer and is slightly more moist and more shiny on the outside, which potentially means that we're heading in the direction. The track is over here. Tracks is pointing in this direction as well, which suspect that they might be heading towards a dam. So let's try and get to the dam as quickly as possible and go and see if they may be having a drink there. It's probably another 900 meters to a kilometer for us to get there. We're just going to consistently walk, and in the meanwhile, I just want to keep my eyes open, but I don't bump into them by accident. Some of the things that you do want to look out for when you are following buffalo is obviously the fresh signs of urine on the ground, fresh tracks, dung that is quite warm. And then also you need to keep your ears open for oxpeckers, as they often associate with these animals. However, it's not a given. There's times that I've actually followed buffalo and didn't hear a single oxpecker on them. One occasion I actually was following them in an area and it was fairly tall grass, and I decided, okay, maybe I should not go through here. But I had a limited amount of a route that I could choose. And one of my saving graces at that moment was actually the fork-tailed drongo, which was following these buffalo as they were moving through the grass and disturbing insects. And he was just simply catching insect after insect as they were moving. It's also very important to keep your ears open for the sounds that they produce. So typically like a cow, a bulking call that they have, which you often can detect them by.
I'm just keeping an eye on the shoreline here, and quite a couple of different birds coming in every now and then. They just don't stick around for long, other than these lapwings. We just had a couple of swallows who collected mud, and I'm hoping that they will return. Blacksmith lapwing, or blacksmith plover as it was used to be called. I was hoping for something like a blue axbill, one of those very colorful small birds to come in and drink, and I'm just on my binoculars at the moment, just scanning the shoreline. Looking for any pretty little birdies. This stage, the plovers, and they're rather pretty. I think they're a phenomenal little bird. A couple of doves coming in as well. Good day, Benson. Initially, when taxonomists and biologists named certain birds, at the time we didn't have a good understanding about genetics, and recent studies have now shown that plovers and lapwings are slightly different. And I mean, lapwings also occurs in other places, and they might have been named lapwings in other places. And it is two distinct sub-variations of that entire family of birds. And we realized that genetically the lapwing is in fact a separate to plovers, and therefore the bird was then separated out of the plover family and back into the lapwing. There's still some of the plovers that we have here that remain, or the names remained in the plover family, like the three-banded plover and white-fronted plovers and those type of smaller plovers. Plovers, depends on how you pronounce it. So it's all got to do with a better understanding of which families the birds belong to. There's a couple of name changes that happened in the last 2 decades that one could, in a way, question, that somehow doesn't make sense. I can't really think of any particular one now. But most of them is because of the better understanding we have as to where certain birds fit into certain animals. And our initial understanding a couple of decades ago was arguably slightly misplaced. And therefore I won't say recent, but the name changes. But while we wait for more birds, let's head over to Ali, who is full of surprises today.
Well, not really full of surprises. We just like it when they cooperate with us. So it's nice when we bump into them on the road, like this male giraffe that we're looking at. But, we were debating a little bit. Giraffe, unicorn, maybe we did find one after all. No, so this big bull seems like maybe he's sort of been rubbing the top of that calcium deposit that he's got in front of his head, and it's just devoid of any hair, so it actually looks quite funny. We thought maybe perhaps it had been injured, but what happens with male giraffe in particular is as they get older, then they get calcium deposits around their head. This makes the theory is that this makes these calcium deposits that are in the front of the two ossicons, which is that big bulge that you're seeing there. So this is not a deformity. This is the way that male giraffes are, and you see behind the two ossicons there are another two. So these calciums deposit, what they do is they add weight to the head. So when they fight for dominance or for the right to mate with the females, the male giraffes do what is called necking. So they'll use their heads and their necks to fight one another, and they hit the opponent with their heads. So as they get older with these calcium deposits, the head obviously becomes heavier. So the heavier the head, then the heavier the blow they can inflict on their opponent. So I think in this case, this guy has perhaps because it's so prominent in the front, maybe because of constant fighting or for putting his head in the middle of a tree for eating, it's just kind of been rubbing the hair off the top of that sort of deposit. And it looked funny. We thought maybe perhaps it was injured, but then we were looking through binoculars and then with the camera, and it just doesn't seem that way. It just seems that because of use, it's just devoid of hair. It's almost like a bald patch in the wrong spot for a giraffe. That's quite funny. Are you enjoying that tree, friend? Seems like he's feeding on a young leadwood. Must be some tasty leaves. I thought perhaps it was at Tswalu, which is the same one where the genet had gone up, but sadly that was not the case. I mean, you can see those giraffe is pretty much hiding all the way up in the top of the tree. So males are normally maybe about 4.5 meters long, and then as they tilt their head and they stick that very long tongue out, then they're able to get to the top of the branches. I'm surprised it's feeding on this tree though. Maybe they've just finished or they've created the browsing line. We have a very beautiful species of tree, which is the one to the right in the background. I don't know if you can see it there, Darren. That is flowering all over. So the big one at the back, not that one to the right, that one there. So that one is called a knobthorn. Used to be what we called acacias, but now they're not. I'm not too sure about the knobthorn. I think this one has been rebranded as a Senegalia. But the point of the story is that these guys start flowering before the rest of the trees around the area. So just before the springtime, we get these beautiful little fluffy yellow flowers. And giraffes are very well known for absolutely enjoying these trees. Well, acacias in general, because in the acacia leaves are full of protein and they are a very good nutritious source for all the animals around. But when the flowers come out, or on the flowers on these particular trees, obviously they're quite sugary. So you see a lot of animals just trying to eat them. Oh, all right. The giraffe is completely ignoring everything I just said. Maybe it's already had its fill. So we're just going to leave it and then carry on to a bit of a waterhole patrol. But we'll send you guys across to JP in the meantime, who I believe is following up on the buffalo.
Welcome back to Bushwalk. We did eventually catch up with our buffalo. I'm not going to speak very loudly because the hearing is generally quite good. So we tracked him down over a kilometre or two now. And the things that we were looking for was fresh tracks, fresh dung, which was still nice and warm. But we were also listening for the sounds of oxpeckers as well as vocalizations that they often produce. So we were battling at first because the tracks was all over the place and then it moved into a number of different directions. My gut feeling was that they came down to come and have a drink for water, and our gut feeling definitely paid off. We're just going to try and see if we can get a little bit closer. At the moment we're on a high positioned area where we've got high ground in our favour. We've also got the wind in our favour. So we always want to stay on the downwind side of animals, and we also want to use a sufficient amount of cover that we don't become visible to the animal. There's two-part reason to that. Firstly, we don't want to be detected and get ourselves in trouble, and neither do we want to startle the animals either. Our intention always is when viewing animals that we leave them as that we found them. For me, it's also about the conservation of energy. You don't want to force them to expend any unnecessary energy. There's a fluttering of white wings in between them at the moment. It's very likely that there's some cattle egrets that are feeding in association with them. So these birds often will hop on top of a buffalo and then use them as the beaters, and as if they are stirring up insects, they will then feed on the insects that's been disturbed by the buffalo. Unlike for oxpeckers, they don't provide any form of alarm call, but simply benefit from the insects. A perfect position right behind a tree on high ground and with the wind in our favour. I was going to sit and watch him for a little while and see what they get up to. This is very likely the same group as what we found yesterday morning when we started our walk. And at first we thought that it was a bachelor herd, but on closer inspection we also noticed that there was a number of cows inside this group. We're just going to pan around with the camera from buffalo to buffalo and see how their horns look like. So if the horns are fixed in the center with a solid mass of keratin, that's a bull. If there's a slight separation and the horns is much thinner, that tends to be female. However, I've seen some odd appearances of horns over the years as well, with both male and female. One of the things that made me very excited is that there's actually also yellow-billed oxpeckers with them at the moment. And that's the very first time that I've actually seen a yellow-billed oxpecker on the Pridelands concession.
me, the best part about being a guide is being able to live out in Africa's wild places and being able to share that with people. Of all the challenges, for me, the one that I'm probably the most comfortable with is the game drive. I think that's what I do most days, so that would probably be what I feel like I'd do the best at. Almost like someone's put little Lego blocks up there and made this perfect little sort of statue, and there's another one further along as we drive. One of the challenges I'm the most nervous about would probably be shooting. I think on the day there's always quite a bit of pressure and intimidation, always associated with it, but I guess we'll see how it goes. I hope I'll win this competition, but if I don't, it's still been an experience of a lifetime, and I've learned a lot and met a lot of really, really cool people.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river. It's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that. How beautiful. Look at that. One crossing, 2 to go.
Welcome back, everyone. We've come out to the western part of Phinda, where we heard about some cheetah, 2 male cheetahs that were in this area. So we've come to have a look and see if we can try and find them. Quite a different looking landscape to where we have been this morning. We're on the western side of the Lebombo Mountains now. And what we're doing is we're on a bit of a hillside at the moment. And we're just scanning across to the opposite hill, because those cheetah were seen around here, just lying in one of these burnt areas. So we just keep checking these clearings. Hopefully we'll be able to spot them. Unless they've moved a considerable distance from where they were last seen. So this burnt area, this was part of our annual controlled burn, and we do that to manage the fuel load, so the fuel being combustible dead plant material, so dead grass and dead trees. Over the years that builds up and it can become quite dangerous, especially if a wildfire had to break out. We wouldn't be able to control the fire, and so we do these annual burns to manage that fuel load. But also we do it at the right time of year. Well, we try to do it at the right time of year, just before we get some rain, in order to stimulate grass growth. So we're going to continue checking through this area, see if we can try and find those 2 male cheetahs.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
A young giraffe walking through the woods quite fast. It's in fact where the name giraffe originated from an Arabic word zarafa or zirafa, which refers to walking swiftly or walking fast. And there's another one. So now it's become a journey of giraffe. A relatively tough time for giraffe at the moment. Most of their favorite trees that they utilize do not have any leaves at the moment, so they need to diversify and try and find sustenance in any form of leaf. So they'll now be forced to eat very broadleaf trees and so forth. It's not necessarily the best fodder. Fortunately, some of the thorn trees, the Senegalias, the knob thorns, are starting to flower, and that is a very, very nutritious little snack for giraffe. I don't see any example close by flowers. If I do, I'll point it out. At times I've also seen them licking the tips or tops of those termite mounds, and sometimes it's just to supplement their mineral intake. In ecology is referred to as geophagia. Hello, Nazreen. I'm going to estimate. I'm not going to be able to tell you to the exact, but I suspect if you look at their size, and they've got a fairly large rumen, it's probably in the region of about 10 to 20 kilogram of fodder a day. And that's just based on its size. Could be a touch more than that. They are ruminants, so they, compared to their body weight, they eat much less than, for instance, elephants and hippo, all those who don't have a four-chambered stomach, and those digestive systems are slightly less efficient. Even if you look at giraffe dung, you can see it's very finely chewed because of the process of ruminating or chewing the cud. So they do give the microbes in the stomach or in the digestive tract chance to just ferment it much better. And remember that they don't digest their food, it's microbes, bacteria, fungi, protozoa in their gut that ferments their food, and they absorb the byproduct of those microbes as a fuel. And then the microbes themselves gets digested as they pass through latter stages of the digestive system, and they get broken down into amino acids which their body then resynthesizes into proteins. And that's how they get their protein, other than some small amounts of protein that they ingest through some of the fruits and plants that they consume. It's an amazing little symbiotic relationship that they have with tiny, tiny, tiny little organisms in their gut. And this is not specific to giraffe, this is just herbivores in general, and there's a lot of variations to that sort of process, but just more in a nutshell. And we will leave them to finish their brunch, or their late breakfast, and continue.
Welcome back on Bushwalk. We just left our buffalo a few minutes ago and had a great view on them. Unfortunately, they've moved off into an area where we could no longer follow them safely, and therefore had to abandon our viewing. We're now on our way back into an area where we can go and see if we can find anything else. As we move around, we're just going to share the landscape with you.
Now, just remember, I was just speaking about the giraffe, that they are feeding on anything that they can get. And this is something they probably won't touch too much. This is the magic guwari tree. We have mentioned it a lot during our drives the last week. And while we're driving around, you will see this very shiny green bushes all along. And this is most often the guwari bush. Now, the leaves are quite strong, as you can see. They're quite attached, very hard leaf, and they're extremely bitter. Quite a lot of tannin that they contain. So, being an evergreen tree, it is one of the tree's defense mechanisms to prevent overutilization in the form of browsing. So it gives this plant some very good time to photosynthesize with the sun all year round, and it can store sugars in its roots. And when the time comes for it to produce its fruits, its berries, it can do it and create some lovely sweet berries, and therefore that will assist with the dispersal of seed. Birds and all sorts of things, even humans, consume their berries. Very tasty. It's like almost like a tiny little blackcurrant. And I must say, one of my colleagues have told me this story, that when they were children, they used to make toothbrushes, and this is still today in some rural areas being done. It's got a very fibrous little bark, and what one can do is to just get a nice little thin twig, remove the outer bark, and just chew the tips, and it will separate those fibers, and it creates a lovely little toothbrush that one can use. And in fact, that particular colleague of mine was a tracker that I was assigned to work with earlier in my career, and he said, no, when they were kids, they used to eat these berries. And the problem is, if you eat too much of it, you get constipated, apparently. I've never eaten so many of them that I've had that condition. But so their parents prohibited them from going out to eating these berries. And they do temporarily stain your teeth, much like if you drink red wine. So there is a bit of that purple sort of shine to your teeth. So your parents can see that you were, in fact, eating these. And what they would have done is they would have made a little toothbrush like this, and they would look for ash. I mean, there's always ash around, you know, at home when you cook on fire, especially ash from the leadwood tree or one of the bush willows that are very rich in lime. So you can see the ash is very, very white, and it creates a very good toothpaste mixed with water. And they used to then engulf themselves into oblivion with these berries, and in order to escape wrath from the parents, they would use this, make up a toothbrush, and then use the ash of the leadwood tree and clean their teeth. And that sort of stuck around, and this is something that's been done even today with, well, not only the magic guarri trees, but most guarri trees around. Just showed you, if you start digging, you'll find hidden treasures out here in the bush. Now, we're going to continue. So I'm going to hold on to my toothbrush as a souvenir. And let's see. Good afternoon. Yeah, well, morning. Kenny, when they disappear, it's not necessarily a sign of anything in particular. Just remember that if I refer to them disappearing like I did earlier, it's just from Djuma's area or the area that we have access to. And it is not permanent. We did expect it. And there's times where elephants move through the area in their numbers and times where they are elsewhere. Elephants have massive areas that they move, and it was probably a very large super group that were in our area, which is a couple of loosely related herds that collectively move through an area, and it can change literally overnight. So you can wake up tomorrow and another group from another area might have arrived. So for us, it's not necessarily any bad sign. That is just part of the natural rhythm that they're into. And they don't stick to a particular program. They move as the conditions change. You know, another big factor that also prompts them to move away. Now, remember, for about a week, there was an incredible amount of elephants around here. Now, just now with that guarri tree, we mentioned tannins. Now, tannins is woody plants, one of their main defenses against overutilization. Now, when you have a lot of elephants in an area, the trees start producing tannins. They also release certain chemicals that into the air, and that almost communicates with other trees, and they start elevating their tannin levels in the bark and in, you know, so the entire area's tannin levels starts raising. Now, these tannins, other than being very bitter, makes the food also indigestible to a large degree. And that could also be a reason why the elephants have decided, right, we've been in this immediate area for a while. It's time to move out now. Tannin levels are raising. It's getting to a level where we will need to find alternative areas. And that will give this area time to rest from really intense elephant movement. You still find the odd young males around, and there will be the odd small herd coming through still. But you never know. It's very random, so it's difficult to predict when again we'll have so many elephants around. We do have very good water sources here, so I don't suspect this is going to take weeks before we will see another large population of elephants moving into our area. Well, let's hope it's this afternoon. That will be fantastic.
Every year in August, South Africa marks Women's Month. WildEarth would like to acknowledge and thank all the amazing females who have worked tirelessly to share our nature with the world.
We're gonna have to just wait, okay? She's gonna come out there just on my right-hand side, and she can see these impala.
Now you've got to inhale it. It burns. I don't know if it's supposed to work instantly. Go, girl, go! Get her! Get her, girl! Get her! I'm so looking forward to following her story in the future.
I'm really hoping there's two. I'm really hoping there's two. But you know, even if there's one, oh my goodness, everyone!
And I get to share it with you. Isn't that extra special? I get to experience it and show it to everyone.
Guiding as an industry has become, over time, more and more professional and more recognized as a profession rather than just a hobby. And so to be recognized for that professionality is really kind of it's humbling, really, to be able to say that. It's definitely birding is the thing that I feel most comfortable with in terms of categories that we have here. At least comfortable, I mean, you never know how you're going to shoot on a particular day. You can have a good day where you blast everything as you need to, in terms of the targets, and then you can have a shocker where you just, miss a single shot here or there, and that's basically the end of your day. To be considered for such an experience is really a powerful thing, and so I'm here just to have a lot of fun and experience what the competition's all about.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth.
Well, there are some big that we're looking at. Sleepy cat, nonetheless. I mean, don't blame him. It's very hot. It's all of a sudden become incredibly warm. So, as lions do, he is now resting. Enjoying a little bit of shade by a tree that actually has very little leaves. So this is Dark Mane. He is part of the Avoca coalition of male lions that is has been dominant around this area for the last couple of years, actually. This morning he was roaring all around, and I think Chris was looking for him. I'm not sure if Chris actually managed to catch up with him today or not, but he's been sort of trailing where the Talamatis have left. So as we said yesterday, the Talamatis, it seems like they crossed into Manialeti, and we are pretty much right on the boundary. So for Manialeti is another reserve run by the government, by the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Board agency, but it is open to Buffelshoek and the Sabi Sand and the Greater Kruger. So for the animals, it pretty much means nothing. They just walk in and out the way they want, and the Talamatis have now gone back into Manialeti, potentially trailing or looking for a buffalo herd. Lots of signals of buffalo being around this area. And I suspect that Darkmane was roaring this morning, just trying to get hold of them and find out exactly where they've been, because he's unfortunately got an injury on his foot, but it's healed that way. And although he looks quite impressive and he is in good condition, he's not able to walk as fast or as far as some of what the other lions do. So, I mean, there's a top right foot. I can't even say that word properly in English today. I'm going to need more coffee when I get home. And he's just enjoying the shade. So I think maybe he will very likely lie down somewhere around here towards the midday. I think he's not going to have any shade on this termite mound, so he will very likely retreat under a tree somewhere. There are a lot of quarries around us. I mean, a few big marulas maybe here and there. But he will likely just try to stay cool and instead of overheating and getting too warm. We're slowly saying goodbye to the winter, so the temperatures are starting to rise in the middle of the day, with many animals then retreating further, starting to be mobile earlier in the morning. He's just taking it easy, I would say. It would be nice to come later on in case he does roar again, maybe towards the end of this afternoon. If he was desperately looking for the Talamatis and the rest of the pride this morning, there is a good chance that he'll start roaring again later on, just to try and find out, because a lot of the times they'll roar, but just to try and find out where the rest of the pride is, to try and locate one another. Because they obviously got different calls. There's the roaring forward territorial display that the males do and the females, just to say, this specific area belongs to them. And then there's also roaring done to try and find each other. It's a big area. They walk long distances. Sometimes their noses are not their best asset. And then because it's cooler in the evenings, then it's a lot easier, or sound will travel faster, so they can try to sort of find one another, or in a way that less effort in terms of sniffing and using their senses. Because as soon as, a lion roars in a certain distance, and obviously their hearing is better than ours, they're able to pinpoint where the roar is coming from. And they're able to tell who's roaring. So they'll be able to...
Well, it seems we've lost signal. We do know that Ali is in an area that is very borderline in terms of where our signal reaches. So just our apologies for that. And incredible. That's very likely the male lion that we heard vocalizing this morning. That Ali's just located there. And wow, what a way to end her stretch of the show. And what a show it was. Leopard and lion, and would have been nice if there was some Ellies. And VK and I had a very nice little exploration drive of Djuma property. It's always good to explore areas that you don't traverse often. So it was nice to almost being forced in a way, following tracks to get to areas where you don't often get to. And that's how you get to know the property, which is very, very stimulating. Looking forward to a very, very warm afternoon. There's almost no breeze. The sun is starting to really, really become quite intense. So this afternoon, warm afternoon, water rolls, great plan. That will be what we're going to do this afternoon. And perhaps later on, we can go and revisit the area where that male leopard was and see if anything has changed. Probably very much later, closer towards sunset. And hopefully we'll be able to bring you another fantastic experience right here live at Djuma Game Reserve in the Lowveld of South Africa. And as I sort of peek out into the distance, I can just wonder what that afternoon will bring once we head into those Lovely woodlands down there. There's a lot of promise looking at the weather and what's been seen this morning. So I'm hoping that it would be great. So join us this afternoon for your own live safari into the African wild.